Hello, welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Pramod Pandey. I teach at Center for Linguistics, Jawaharlal Nehru University. We will be talking about the course entitled Introduction to Phonetics and Phonology. Among all the inborn faculties, the faculty of language is considered not only universal but also unique. What do we mean by universal? What we mean is that there is no language in which the speakers of the community do not have speech sounds. And unique, what we mean by unique is that the faculty of language is especially found in human beings. And some of these properties of language that are found in the language of human beings are not shared by any other kind of communicative system. Thus, all languages have sounds and meanings. Now, the capacity for language is crucially dependent on sounds, and it seems now we have enough evidence to claim that we have a biological disposition for language, for producing and hearing sounds and relating them to meaning. The topic of the present course is speech sounds. So, we have a diagram of a typical oral communication here. Take a look at it and see how the communication takes place. In the first instance, we have a speaker getting an idea. The idea is then translated into spoken words. The spoken words travel in the air. Each of the sounds and sound properties has its own acoustic property, which is received by the outer ear. The outer ear then sends the signals to the brain, and the speaker is able to interpret the message that the speech signal has made it available to the speaker. Now, we will take a look at the rationale as to why we need to study speech sounds. For a student of linguistics, it is natural sometimes to assume that writing is the basis of speech. That is the assumption that the learner, the student of linguistics, brings to the classroom when he or she is introduced to linguistics. And we will see that this is actually a misconception. Instead of assuming that speech is dependent on writing, the reality is that it is the writing which is dependent on speech. Many factors that lend support to the fact that speech is primary and writing is secondary are listed there on the screen, as you can see. Number one, speech is universal. It's found in all communities. Writing is specific to some communities. Not all communities have writing systems. For example, the communities known as the Jarawas and the Onkes of the Andaman Islands did not have a script of their own until recently. It's now that we feel that they need to be, in order to be educated, they need scripts. And that's how many of these societies are developing in literacy. Then we find that we learn to speak much before we learn to read and write. A child, when he is born, learns to speak on his own. As we said, the faculty of speech is biologically endowed. If the child is exposed to a language, the child learns within a given period of time. The child learns to speak, but the ability to read is not innate. The child has to be taught to read and write. The third point, when we look at the development of the human species, we have some evidence to claim that speech came about 50,000 years ago, whereas writing was invented more recently. Historically, we have, according to the historical records, it goes back to about 3,000 years ago or a little earlier. So there is a big gap between 50,000 years and 3,000 years. The fourth point, learning to speak happens spontaneously, and as we said, writing has to be taught. Now, in order for us to be able to focus our attention on speech, it is necessary for us, especially for students of linguistics, to be able to familiar with the question of phonetic transcription. Why do we need phonetic transcription? One of the most important points that you need to take note of, and that you should remember throughout this course, is that the study of speech sounds cannot be based on the conventional writing script. Let's take a look at some words in English. Look at the words given in A. We have 5 words. In each of them we have the vowel A, and if you pay attention to how the words are pronounced, what we find is that the vowel sound that the letter represents is different in each. Thus, we see the first word is tap, the vowel is A. The second word is tape, the vowel is A. The third, above, the vowel is A. The fourth is tall, the vowel is O. And the fifth is father, the vowel is A. Thus, we have 5 different vowel sounds: A, O, and A, all represented by just one letter. In a scientific study of speech sounds, it is necessary that the symbols that we use have one-to-one correspondence between the letter and the sound. If we restrict ourselves to the written symbols, then that is not possible. So, it has been felt necessary that a new system of writing is introduced, in which we have a one-to-one correspondence between the written symbol and the spoken symbol. That is how the International Phonetic Alphabet has come into being. One of the objectives of this course is for you to be efficient in the use of the International Phonetic Alphabet. There are 2 different types of speech sounds that the International Phonetic Alphabet tries to account for. These 2 different types of speech sounds are called segmental and suprasegmental. The word suprasegmental is sometimes substituted by the word prosodic. So, we are going to use the word prosodic for suprasegmental. Segmental units, you will all be familiar, are these well-known units called vowels and sounds. Apart from this, the units of speech, we also are going to study the processes of speech. We have segmental phenomena, or rather segmental processes of speech. For example, aspiration in English. Given the sounds p, t, k, these sounds are aspirated in a given context, and when we try to find out in what context these sounds are aspirated, we are looking into the issue of aspiration as a process, as a segmental process in English. Similarly, in Hindi, although the written word has short vowels at the end, but the speakers of Hindi tend to lengthen those vowels. So, given a word such as, if we pronounce faithfully the written words atithi, apitu, the final vowels appear to be short, but actually in reality we hear the words produced as atithi, apitu. This process of the final lengthening of vowels is termed as vowel lengthening in Hindi. Both the processes of aspiration and lengthening are segmental processes because they relate to segments, to single segments. We have take a look at these X-ray pictures of the production of consonants and vowels. As you will notice that these segmental units, consonants and vowels, are crucially distinguished on the basis of whether or not there is an obstruction in the oral cavity. So, the top left picture is of the production of sa. As you will notice there, the tip of the tongue is raised high and it seems brought very close to the alveolar ridge or the teeth, but there is a little gap there, In the production of the consonant L, there is no such gap in the center, and yet you will notice a certain depression in the middle of the tongue. That is the depression formed in order to allow the air to escape from the sides, but there is an obstruction in the center of the mouth. Compared to the top two pictures, the bottom two pictures are of the vowels E and A. E is a relatively close vowel, and so there is very little space between the upper roof of the mouth and the tongue, yet the air flows freely through them. There is no obstruction anywhere in the mouth. And in the production of A, of course, we can see that the oral cavity is quite wide open, and thus the air escapes freely without any friction in the mouth, without any kind of obstruction in the mouth. This is how the segmental sounds are produced. We are concerned with the two types of segmental sounds that we have just considered. In addition to the segmental sounds, we also have prosodic sounds, as we said, and we talk just as segmental units and segmental processes. We talk about prosodic units and prosodic processes. Among the best known prosodic units is the syllable. Most of us are familiar with the unit syllable. The syllable is a unit that groups consonants and vowels together. It's easy to count the number of syllables. We have a golden rule: as many vowels, so many syllables. For example, in the word America, we have 4 vowels, and thus we also have 4 syllables: a, me, ri, and ka. Among the prosodic phenomena, the best known is word stress. Word stress is defined as relative prominence, and it is dependent on the syllables, the number of syllables, the position of the syllables in the word, etc., and sometimes also on the grammatical category to which the word belongs. Thus, if a word has 2 syllables, we can either have the first syllable stressed or the second syllable stressed, and languages differ here according to whether they allow the first syllable stressed or the second syllable stressed, and thus we are able to identify speakers or the speech produced by the speakers of these 2 different systems. For example, Tamil is known to have stress at the beginning of words. On the other hand, a language such as Adi, spoken in Arunachal Pradesh, along with many other Tibeto-Burman languages, prefers to have stress on the final syllable. Thus, in Indian English varieties, for example, Tamil English and Adi English, we hear the English words pronounced quite differently. For example, the word university is pronounced as university in Tamil English and as university in Adi. Similarly, develop in Tamil English and develop in Adi English. The study of the different varieties of English all over the world is an interesting case of how the pronunciations of words are dependent on the typical stress systems of those languages. Another prosodic phenomenon is tone. Tone is defined as the use of pitch to distinguish the meanings of words. Thus, we have 2 types of languages: one tonal language and the other non-tonal languages. In India, a large number of languages are tonal languages, but it just happens to be the case that the number of speakers of those languages are much smaller in number. Perhaps less than 1% speakers speak those languages, but the numbers are large. Some of the most of the languages of the well-known groups such as Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Austroasiatic, they lack tones in them. Some languages, however, of Indo-Aryan languages, for example, Punjabi, Dogri, have come to develop tone in them. Thus, given a word such as kar, which kar, if pronounced with one tone, it means do, and if it is pronounced with another tone, it means a house. So the tonal systems in these languages are developing. We have another type of language which is known as intonational languages. These are the non-tonal languages. In intonational languages, we also use pitch, but not to distinguish words, but rather to distinguish sentences. That is universal. All languages, tonal or non-tonal, use pitch to distinguish sentences. For example, the English sentence, "My friend's mother is a teacher," employs a different kind of tonal pattern from the sentence, "Is your friend too a teacher?" and "What a teacher she is." Thus, we have used intonations such as ah, or ah, or ah. Now, if you take a look at the diagram here on the screen, we have the pitch patterns of a Hindi sentence, which is वहाँ जहाँ आकाश में बादल हैं, लड़की को एक आदमी देख रहा है. Translated as, where there are clouds in the sky, a man is watching a girl. Now you notice the lines above the phonetic transcription. On the top we have oscillogram, and just below them we have the pitch contours of the entire sentence. You can see the pitch starting somewhere between 250 to 30 hertz and immediately going up to about between 300 to 350 hertz, comes down again. That's how the pitch modulation takes place. And in the end, the sentence, the pitch falls in the sentence, which means that it is a declarative type of sentence. In the first half, the pitch pattern goes up, वहाँ जहाँ आकाश में बादल हैं, which indicates continuation of the speech. So the listener interprets it as part of the sentence which is not yet complete, and you can expect another part of the sentence to follow. This is how most sentences in languages are produced. Different languages have different intonational contours. So far we have discussed the units and processes of speech, segmental and suprasegmental or prosodic. It is now important for us to take a look at how these various units and processes can be studied. In this connection, it is necessary to note that we have at least two levels of the study of speech sounds. We call them phonetics and phonology. The difference between phonetics and phonology can be stated as follows. Phonetics deals with the physical properties of speech sounds, compared to phonology, which deals with the pattern of organization of speech sounds in a system. For example, the two sounds p and p have similar phonetic properties, but they are organized differently in different languages. So when we pay attention to the physical properties of speech sounds, almost all pronunciations of p and p sound alike. So phonetically they are quite similar. But when we look at the way in which these sounds are organized, that is, when we look at the phonology of these sounds, then we have to examine the facts and then come to a certain conclusion whether these two sounds are the same or are they different. Thus, the second point, which is an emphasis of what we have said, is that speech sounds as such are the subject matter of study. Speech sounds as such in any language at all. That is the matter of study in phonetics. Whereas in phonology, we are concerned with speech sounds in specific languages. So we take a look at, we say, the phonology of this language, the phonological organization of sounds in a specific language. So phonetics is more general, whereas phonology tends to be more specific. Then the third point is that phonetics helps substantiate claims about physical characteristics of sounds in phonetics. So we make generalizations about the properties of speech sounds in phonetics. Some of these generalizations play a very important role in language technology solutions. For example, if you want to have developed a software of speech synthesis, then you need to be fully aware of the physical properties, characteristics of speech sounds that the program can take into account. In phonology, however, it is not the physical characteristics of speech sounds, but rather the distributional explanation of the systematic generalizations that are a subject matter of its study. Thus, we can sum it up by saying that phonetics is physical, is concerned with the physical properties of speech sounds, and phonology is concerned with the organization of speech sounds in a linguistic system. Apart from the distinction between phonetics and phonology as levels of the study of speech sounds, we have two different approaches to the study of speech sounds. And these approaches have best been summed up as physicalist and mentalist approaches. So there are two different perspectives. Phonetics and phonology are one in the physicalist approach. The physicalist approach claims that basically the main crucial properties of speech sounds are articulatory and acoustic. Both phonology and phonetics are concerned with this. So there is no real difference between phonology and phonetics, because the essential properties of speech sounds are acoustic and articulatory, and both should be concerned with investigating them. The mentalist approach, however, assumes that phonetics and phonology are separable. Acoustic and articulatory properties of speech are realizations of the intentions of speech, which is the subject matter of phonology. So phonology deals with the intentions of speaking, and phonetics deals with the implementation of the intention of speaking. And thus, it is necessary, according to the mentalist approach, to distinguish between phonetics and phonology. Although we have said that speech is universal and is also unique to human beings, it is necessary for us to note that there are human beings, such as deaf and dumb, who do not speak. They make use of sign language. However, as we come to understand the system of sign language used by the members of these communities, we find that there is a very close resemblance between sign language and speech. First of all, the deaf and the dumb members of the community spontaneously learn sign languages, and the manual communication of sign language, although it is not crucially dependent on speech, but it comes fairly close to the spoken language. Just as oral languages are not mutually intelligible, sign language systems also appear to have their own dialectal features. For example, the American Sign Language differs from the Indian Sign Language. So each of them come to develop their own systems. We also are coming to understand that just as speech has the segmental and prosodic units such as vowels, consonants and syllables. Sign languages too have their units which are at the same level as vowels, consonants and syllables, and thus the study of sign languages can be pursued in relation to the study of phonetics and phonology, and the field is of great interest. We will, however, in this course concentrate on the spoken language alone. We have come to the close of this module. What we have seen in this module are the following. We saw that the study of speech is an essential part of the study of language or linguistics. The study of speech sounds takes into account the types of spoken units and processes. Thus, there are two main types of phonetic units. We call them segmental and suprasegmental. Accordingly, there are two main types of speech processes, namely segmental and suprasegmental. Having looked at them and seen the need for studying them, we came to look at the two levels of the study of speech sounds called phonetics and phonology. And then finally, we saw that the study of phonetics and phonology in turn follows at least two different approaches. One we call physicalist and the other we call mentalist. Are we going to choose between one of them? Well, not really, because this is an introduction to the study of phonetics and phonology. So we will be mainly concerned with the fundamental topics in the study of phonetics and phonology. The issue of choosing between one of these approaches is of interest at a later stage, at the stage where a researcher starts to investigate the working of spoken phenomena. And so we will be mainly concerned with the basics of the study of speech in terms of phonetics and phonology. Half of this course is dedicated to this phonetics and the other half to elementary phonology. Thank you.